Yeah. So hi everybody. This is Valery Oprya, and this is a next session from our series Leadership Transformation Marathon. Today we are running this session with Sören Schuster. Hi Sören, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. How are you doing? And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. This time. So I would like shortly to explain the purpose of our session, because mainly, so we are watched by executives, leaders, and organizational directors. So first of all, in this series, we are going to talk about a very interesting role, which is Chief Philosophy Officer. And the purpose of this specific session is just to introduce this role to the business leaders and managers, executives, to some extent to popularize the concept of this role. Because sometimes so businesses see the need of this role, but they don't understand how to visualize, how to materialize this role within the organizational context. So to feature some existing and emerging best practices around Chief Philosophy Officer, and to discuss current developments around this role. So just a little bit introductions. As I said, my name is Valery Oprya. I'm Chief Philosophy Officer, so I'm representing some guys who are just delivering on this job. So I'm a management consultant, executive coach, and probably I'm not traditional Chief Philosophy Officer, because I work as a consultant in the role of Chief Philosophy Officer as external support to executives and leaders. So my counterpart Sören, so I like the descriptions I found about you on one of the website. So he's a doctoral candidate of philosophy at Albert-Ludwigs-Universität Freiburg and fellow of Institut for Wirtschaftsgestaltung. And the idea that I liked most, it was that so your research pursuits includes philosophy of economics, history of economic thought, philosophy of management, and Friedrich Nietzsche. So how is it connected?
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. And yeah, it is everything is connected somehow, of course. And maybe, yeah, one part of my research, especially the part on Nietzsche, is also my PhD project, and I constantly deal with the question what it is the economy and how we can understand the economy. And so that is what I'm trying to answer there from like a perspective of Nietzsche, and that is also what I do in my other activities. So I also do some consultant work, and it is basically the same question: what is business? What is the economy? And it is the same question I try to bring up there, and it turns out that it can actually be not only an academic question that we can ask out of the ivory tower or whatever, but that it can be a very productive question also for organizations. Yeah, and that might be how everything comes together there. And yeah, so thank you very much.
Because when I was a student at the university, I also liked reading Nietzsche, and it's something like not a coincidence that we're having now a session, a talk on the Chief Philosophy Officer's role, and here again the Nietzsche is coming up. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on, and the first thing that we are going to discuss today is actually to highlight the role concept itself, and I would like to start just to memorize how I came
yes
to this role. As I said, I'm working with the executives and leaders from different organizations, and what I have been observing over the last several years that so we see that the number of C-level roles is increasing, due to different factors. Some of them are like the concentration of the power and the opportunity to take team decisions. But at the same time, the synergy that top teams are creating together is decreasing at the same time. So we see that the silo effect that we have seen across the functions, now we see across the top teams in the organizations. One more thing that actually brought me to this idea, I don't know how I just formulated it as like this. So I participated in one of the state-sponsored projects on ideological development at the country level. And it was also one of the ideas that brought me to philosophy as one of the driver of business development, of leadership development. So could you share your insights or how you came to the chief philosophy officer's role? So is there any background or research and so on?
Yes, sure. So for me, it was a bit different. I mean, I'm not the chief philosophy officer, so of course it's different. But the way I came to this project that I'm going to tell you about is probably some blog articles or newspaper articles that were reporting on the phenomenon of the chief philosophy officer and me. And I don't know if it was me or my colleague from the Institut Wirtschaftsgestaltung, Georg Schäfer, who discovered it first, but we thought that might be interesting because at the Institute in Berlin, we were already working with philosophy and with companies, and we were experiencing that it can be an interesting project for both sides, actually. And so that's the environment into which we brought this chief philosophy officer project, and we did some events on it, and then I started to wonder, what is it? And I was researching a bit, not academic research, but more like a journalist, maybe trying, like a bad journalist. I'm not a good journalist, I have to add that. Trying to contact chief philosophy officers, and I got in touch with some of them, but I was not able to realize my first idea to interview all the chief philosophy officers I could find, and so I turned my perspective a bit and asked, what could the role be like? How could we perceive the role of the chief philosophy officer? And I talked not only with chief philosophy officers, but also with experts on this intersection of philosophy and business. And so that's basically the project I made out of that role. And I had conversations and recorded them and turned them into interviews you can read in an ebook. And yeah, so that is how I got there. And to me, it is a really exciting role, since I also work with companies and see the potentials that philosophical thought can have within organizations. I think, yeah, at least it is a very good idea to talk about a role like this and to experiment with different ways of implementing them, like you do as an external consultant, which is not the traditional C role, of course. Yeah, so we have to, I think in the next years, people will find out how this role might work or how it might not work. And I really like this approach of the chief philosophy officer label as a consultant, to bring in something different, as you already indicated. But I'm of course excited to learn more about what what you meant by this thing that is missing right now, that the chief philosophy officer could actually provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Well, actually, I think it is also about the potential that this role can create for the organization, because we can see now as a continuum, starting from the chief learning officers, then it was chief people officer, then chief strategist officer, strategy officer, and some other things. But still, so something was lacking. Yeah, specifically very on one hand, very easy, but on the other hand, very profound question. Why we are doing this way? Why we are taking these decisions at the top? Why we are moving the organization this way, but not that way? Despite any, I would say, the rich world of ideas, still this why is always coming up behind any of these aspects. And yeah, so when I was preparing for this session, I also, now I'm not Googling, I'm just asking the artificial intelligence, so what can be generated around the chief philosophy officer. And what I found is quite interesting. So usually, as you mark, it is a senior executive who is responsible for helping an organization to define and implement the core values, mission, and purpose. On the other hand, CPO can help to ensure that the company values are aligned with its actions. And finally, so what it discovered, CPOs are relatively new phenomenon, but they are becoming increasingly common in a variety of organizations. So help to make sound ethical decisions and to operate in a responsible manner. Well, as if we consider this as an internal role, absolutely, it reflects what actually I mean, or what other chief philosophy officers, holders mean by that. But as for the my role, and in general, when we are moving to discuss the mission of the chief philosophy officer, so I would like to highlight three areas where just I'm coming up, as a consultant. So first of all, it is the role of methodologist, like someone who is coming and just laying out. So what is the way? So what is the challenge, what is the solution, and what is the way we are going to go in order to solve this challenge? So the second, as a consultant, it is I would call it like evangelist of the best practices in management. Because we know that the management is a science, but when it comes to the practical aspects, so we always have to juggle with different tools, practices, but what are they? So how to apply them in the real world? And the last one, it is the executive coaching. So this is why I'm also was very keen on this role, because it allows us to orchestrate with different approaches and in different themes. And another thing that is always coming up at the top, in the top teams, this is how leadership is evolving across the organizational development. How leaders and as a part of the top team are developing across the organizational dynamics. So sometimes, well, we don't pay attention to that, and that is why we don't see this team synergy. So, and what about your research and in your eyes? So what is the need for the role or the concept of this role today?
So let me briefly comment on what you were saying, because I think it is very, very interesting. So the AI, if I understood it right, was mostly focusing on the ethical implications of the role and on the I would not really get the difference between the chief philosophy officer and the chief ethics officer, which is also a concept. So that was more the tendency of the AI when I got it right. But you had a very different and maybe a bit more of a holistic approach to the CPO role, and a rather general role than only I don't know, finding out what is morally good and then judging the company's behavior and telling them what to do or whatever. That could also be one way to understand the chief ethics officer, maybe. But I think the first area you described is for me, or to me, is the most interesting, the methodology, to find out what we are dealing with in the company and how we are perceiving it. So maybe to frame the point from which I'm talking, So in this project I told you about, we had 8 different takes on the chief philosophy officer, and as I explained, I wanted to find out what it could be, the chief philosophy officer. So I'm still trying to find like a mission of the chief philosophy officer, or to a way to put it to me. And one thing that ran like a red thread through all the interviews had to do with this methodological aspect that you mentioned, and it was about perception, about the way we perceive what is happening in a company. And the chief philosophy officer role might be one that can point towards different possibilities of perception within companies, because the way we think about what is happening and the way we frame what is happening, of course, also determines our options to act. And by changing the perception and by engaging in the methodologies we use in our daily business, we can actually change the way the organization might go in the future. And of course, that is also connected to how we implement it. As you said, the evangelist role and the coaching, of course, could be also related to that. So yeah, to me, this aspect of perception is the major aspect, and everything else kind of revolves around that.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that's something interesting, because yeah, when we deal with leaders in the organizations, or when leaders deal with the organizations, what they really manage, yeah, it's just the perception, yeah. Be that the external environment scanning, yeah, so how they perceive their external environment will impact what business they are making and how they run the business. Yeah. And the chief philosophy officer, it's one of the instrumental roles that actually can contribute to shape this perception, yeah, in the way that is relevant for the business in terms of the sustainability, economic value, and so on. Well, that's something very interesting. Thank you very much for this idea. Okay, so let's move to something that is connected with the business and leadership, and specifically, so why the chief philosophy officer is our future. Yeah, because this is how and where the management as a science and leadership as an art are evolving. So in this way, yeah, I think the role of the CPO is a kind of integrator. Yeah, because organization has always been a very political body. Yeah, so a lot of internal politics, a lot of conflicting and competing parties and stakeholders are engaged in the process. And so if you look at the top team or C-level executives, you will see that they are always accountable for a certain function or certain process. But what actually will integrate, yeah, it's something that is above, yeah, or something that is behind, or something that will lay the foundation for their cooperation, synergy, or collaboration. And I think this is the role of the chief philosophy officer. So, and also, if we look into the future developments, so what actually is awaiting us on the path to how we are going to manage the organizations and businesses. So I think that the first thing it is the change, or probably the challenge for us as leaders, as executives, how we are going to integrate technology as artificial intelligence, robotics, and any other technological advancements with human touch, with human efforts. Yeah, because it's not a secret. We are not masters of how to integrate people efforts inside the organization. And now we are moving to another era in management and leadership when we integrate human touch, human efforts, and technological stuff. And of course, I think it would be the question of the ethics again, yeah, because the fairness of the decision making, yeah, will be always balancing between between interests of these two parties. Another thing that I think is also awaiting us, it is that on one hand, yeah, we are moving to the digitalized world, and a lot of data is coming up, and we are abundant in data right now. But again, the more data we are piling up, the less navigation we are having. And again, the role of the chief philosophy officer and philosophy as a science, yeah, can be to be such a navigator, yeah, to explain, okay, what to do with this pile of the data that we have collected, analyzed, and what is next, yeah. And finally, I think it's again the challenge of the leadership, yeah, because we have to grow a new generation of leaders that on one hand have digital personality, or they were socialized in a digital world, yeah, not in real world, yeah, let's say. So secondary, so we call it secondary digital personality. Yeah, and so how we create this, yeah, that managing not only the processes, not only the people management practices, but also integration between technology and people. So, and in my eyes, yeah, the CPU is a kind of integrator that is going to create the synergy between all these things. So, what do you think? How does CPO contribute to the business success according to your research or to your findings across the research?
Yeah, thank you. That was really interesting. And again, I would like to rather build on what you've said, and maybe yeah, tackle the same issues from another perspective, because I thought it was really interesting that you said the organization is a political body, because that is something we do not always realize in economic context, that that organizations are political bodies. And if you look at the development of economics as a discipline, it used to be part of philosophy first, like when we go back to Aristotle, and of moral philosophy with Adam Smith, and political economy we had. And so there was always something like a wider perspective from which the economy was seen. And what happened over the past of the past few hundred years is that it was differentiated out of these wider contexts. And I think that is what we see here when we talk about remembering that that organizations are actual political bodies. And yeah, I think in this regard, the repoliticization of the economy, the chief philosophy officer could play a major role. And I see many signs that would or that demand at least the debate on a role like the CPO. If we talk about sustainability, you mentioned it, about the ecological implications of the economy, but also about diversity. And I mean, the recent years, we also have to talk about geopolitics and what is going on in the world from a wider perspective. And we see all these phenomena that kind of demand another perspective maybe, and another way to grasp what is going on in the company, and to actually make an organization fit for future. And yeah, so in technology is also something that we could put here, and there it becomes really interesting from the chief philosophy officer perspective, if we want to take it. So what is happening with technological development often is that we develop new instruments to do things. And I mean, it is It is not something new I'm saying here. I think it is a basic critique of society that is mainly shaped by consumption. But we have a lot of things and we have a lot of instruments. But the question, what do we use these things for and how do we use them, remains largely unanswered, or at least it is the answer must be found by every individual, and it's not a bad thing to give the individual the answer to that. Actually, it is quite desirable. But also, as a company, if you want to create future products, if you want to shape the future, and not only develop further instruments that might be used for whatever, then we have to bring these big questions of the ends, not only the means but also the ends, into our organization. Yeah, and it's pretty much similar to what is happening with data. Like, what are we doing with data, and what is our purpose there? Yeah, that I think that that kind of sums up the possible fields of activity for a role like that. But to be honest, we have to see what the CPO might be able to do, or what he or she might not be able to do. And I think that it is very exciting to have a role like this, and to observe over the next years the things that might work, might not work, and there are some very promising projects on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I totally agree that the role will be developing, and probably, so what we have been discussing, or what are we discussing right now, probably in some months, yeah, would be not that actual, yeah, because the world will be changing, and it is really changing right now. So the expectations would be quite different. But I totally agree. Yeah. So if we consider what we are doing right now as economy or as organization in general, so will be always reevaluated and reassessed. And the role of the CPO is just to be instrumental in this process. Because again, if you look at the organization as intersection of different political interests, sometimes competing interests, so they need some party or some stakeholders that are not engaged directly. And I probably, that is why I probably think that the CPO in the future is going to be an external role rather than a part of the C-level, yeah, as, for example, the definition from the artificial intelligence is telling us. Yeah. But on the other hand, so if we look a little bit deeper, yeah, so how, for example, I came, yeah, to this role, here is another aspect, yeah, which is connected on one hand with motivation of people, but on the other hand on what we call the nature of the roles, yeah. So so it is thought, yeah, ideally, that we achieve the highest results at work or in any professional roles only when our natural talents are utilized in the work that we are delivering on. So then we call it perfect match. And as for the CPO, for example, in my case, it is completely the reflection of what I think, yeah, because so in my role, I'm acting from different hats. Yeah, so in one moment, I'm an executive coach to the executive level leaders. In another moment, yeah, I'm a consultant, yeah, who is juggling with different management or leadership tools and trying to reinvent a new solution to solve the organizational problems or people-related problems. On the other hand, so I can be someone who is orchestrating the efforts of the team. Yeah, so that is why for me personally, yeah, this concept is very close to my nature. And I think so why I'm doing this work and why I will continue doing this work, because it really utilizes my natural talents. So is there something about you personally, why you got interested into this role, into this concept, in the research around it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been interested in the intersection of the economy and philosophy for a long time, and I think in my bachelor's, it started that I was getting interested there, and yeah, since then I've always been working on questions like these, and then of course, if you see a role coming up like this, if there's a role that might be a good, yeah, not only occasion, but a good concept to talk about certain things that we develop in our research, or certain things that we encounter in the world of business, then yeah, I'm quite grateful for that, to be honest. And yeah, that is probably why I got interested in it. And from my personal experience, I also think that a role like that, especially as you mentioned, as an external consultant, is actually a nice role if you're a generalist, and if you like having different perspectives and doing different things, and yeah, and if you're seeking challenges, I guess, because being a chief philosophy officer, in the way we talked about it, also means challenging people, and that means having a certain independence from what is going on in an organization. And without a certain independence and independent thought, I think the role of the chief philosophy officer might be not that fruitful at all. But that is probably something that we could say about most consultants, and that we can say that yeah, a consultant has to be somehow independent. And that's also why I really get why you follow this role as an external consultant, like, for example, Anil Saturam, whom I also interviewed in the ebook I talked about. Maybe too much I talked about. He's also an external consultant using the CPO. So yeah, I really understand why it is a very interesting role also for me, to be honest. I think being a CPO for a while would be an amazing thing to try out. And yeah, it could also benefit the organizations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, just to sum up, because yeah, so lots of leaders are watching us and are going to watch our session. Yeah, just to summarize, yeah, what they can expect from the value that actually this role can create for the business. So first of all, it is the catalyst of the changes that are necessary, are critical for the business. Secondly, this is a driver of certain initiatives, interventions, or solutions. And finally, this is the methodologies, yeah, because sometimes we need external diagnostics, external view, external support. Um, because we also have to confess that, and I think you can read it in any book, yeah, on the management, but the organization itself is a big demotivator. Yeah, so everybody's striving to get there, but once we are inside, so we find a lot of demotivation rather than a motivation. So that is why, again, so this role is quite instrumental. And if this is external role, yeah, it is much more beneficial because you are not engaged in internal politics. Yeah, you are independent, as you said. Okay, so and finally, let's think briefly on how the philosophy, yeah, can benefit, yeah, from the chief philosophy officer as a representative more from the business world, yeah, because mostly we are working with the business leaders. So what are your view? What is your view on that?
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to connect in this regard to what you said earlier. Your very precise description of the role that you translated for executives listening, for people listening who might want to implement that role in their organization. And you translated it via the value add. So what can the chief philosophy officer deliver, basically? And that is like a very precise way of doing that. But if we are speaking from the point of the chief philosophy officer, that is really only a translation, I think. That might be the aspect here with the philosophy versus business and management. That comes back to the independence of the role. So if we, as people interested in philosophy, or people who might be interested in philosophy in the future, if we only look at possible value adds, I would say that we are not on the right way to independent thought, and to actually creating a role that goes beyond roles that might be there already. So I think it is crucial that philosophy is not only an instrument or a resource that we draw on, but that there is the self-interest of philosophy. Like, philosophy is the love of wisdom, if we translate it directly to Greece, from ancient Greece. So we cannot betray that love, if we want to put it in a very with a lot of emphasis. But there is some truth behind it, I guess. So if we do not let the role be free in a way, and if we always think it in relation to what might be the benefit from this, then I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So it needs this certain self-interest of philosophy, and that we want to actually know something about the organization. That is something that might be not usual in philosophy, that we want to know something about actual organizations. A lot of philosophy is a purely academic business, want to put it like that. But I think it would be important to have this aspect in the possible role description of the CPO.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. Well, just to catch up with the idea about what actually the philosophy is. So when I was a student, we were taught that it's a mother of all sciences. Yeah, so this is the foundation for everything we do, and I think this is the main idea. And then backwards, so what we do just has to be rethought, and philosophy can be nurtured by our advancements, for example. But also I would like to see this the connection between philosophy and the business as a continuum of roles, because all the roles that we have in the business can start from the research roles. Then the second point in the continuum is consulting roles. And then within the organization, there are coordinator roles and operational roles. Yeah. And so the more you are to, the closer you are to the operation, you are closer to the results, to real life, let's say. Yeah. And the closer you are to the research, you are more approaching the philosophy, the fundamentals, the meaning, why we do what we do. And so I think they're always connected, through this continuum. And there are different roles, so, and we can also move across this continuum, specifically from the organizational context back to the research, to the fundamental research, and to create some how to say, so the theory, it is a crystallized practice. So what we have gained and crystallized as wisdom, and then it's again more about the philosophy. Yeah, but another thing that can be connection, it is so that so the business world and application of the philosophy can be advocate for the philosophy in public policy, specifically, yeah, when we are talking about the ideology. And I think it's again not a secret that if the country or the nation has a very strong ideology which is underpinned by philosophy, of course, this nation or this country or this economy prospers. And we can just see different prospering countries. And I think if you double check it, this is always about the ideology that they're sticking to, and the ideas that they are bringing out, they are mostly from the philosophy. Yeah, so what do you think?
Yeah, so I think the way you described it with the different roles, how close they are to the research role, I think that's a good image to visualize how the CPO role could actually focus on this perception and on this what you called also methodology of how we perceive things in the organization. And I also think that this maybe research role is not only for people in leadership positions, but everyone in the organization can be and should be to a certain degree a researcher, and should explore the meaning of their own work for the broad context. One example from the interviews I had was in my conversation with Charles Spinoza. He made or he gave the example of a person working in a call center. And we would say, I mean, this is an operative role. It is on the one side of the spectrum, if we perceive it like that. And but we can also perceive it in a different way if we talk to people from or people who work as call center agents, for example. We often hear that it is not about what the company structure maybe says it is about, but they actually care about needs of people. They care about wishes and desires of people, and they actually implemented this how to say it, they actually implemented this vision, if we want to put it in that term, in their own work, and in that way give meaning to what they are doing. And so I agree with you regarding the distance and non-distance towards maybe the core, the vision core of a company. And I also think that if we do it right with the chief philosophy officer, we maybe encourage people to discover their own CPO role, even though they are not they are not the CPO in the first place. So yeah, that's my thought on this.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. Well, I hope that this talk and this discussion actually catalyzed this thinking for the executives, for the leaders in the organization, that probably this is something that they have been looking for, yeah, but still didn't realize that this role can be materialized, yeah, in the organizational setting. And I think that we energize them just to think and create such a role, because it's not only us who see this need, but I think they themselves, yeah, because when we work specifically in the terms of executive coaching or leadership development programs or executive team development programs, we see that something like organizational glue is highly needed, yeah. But sometimes as people say, yeah, there is no language for that still in the organization. And probably now what we have discussed sparked this idea to our leaders and executives. So what do you, just to follow up your consulting experience on the cultural in the organization, so what would you suggest to the executives or to leaders in terms of should they develop this role within the organization, and how can they approach this process?
Yeah, so I don't think that it is a solution that fits every organization, and I don't think that I don't want to be the spokesperson for the CPOs or something like that. It is a role that can be experimented with in a beneficial way. I'm quite sure about that. But of course, people have to be open to that, and people would have to want a perspective like that within their organization or as an external consultant, as you are doing it. And yeah, so from my experience, what makes a company or makes an organization ready for an idea like that is a certain amount of courage. So the courage to actually widen the scope of what is going on, and maybe also the courage to translate things into different languages. You said it earlier. We have to find language for the things that are happening in society and that are also affecting our economy. And so that might be the crucial part, being open to different translations. And there we are going back to the organization as a political body. So if we introduce political terminology into a company, things start to get different. Like there are certain terms that we can use to describe phenomena that are going on, and we can have also different solutions for things that are going on. And yeah, it is not something for every organization. But I think that we will see more of it, and we will see more experiments and more courage to translate in the future.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Well, actually, as a linguist, I remember that the language has a magic function. Yeah, and just the thought came across that yeah, probably if we invent a new language that the organizations apply in their functioning, yeah, probably they will see another side of the world, another side of the business, another side of the people relationships inside the business, and so on. Yeah, and I think this comment that the companies and leaders need some courage, I also would connect it with that that not organizations and not all leaders have long-term thinking inside the business. Yeah, because the short-termism is always just one of the aches, yeah, that we are coming across. Sometimes it's a cultural thing, but sometimes it is just perception of the world. Yeah, that we can't rely on the future because we don't know what will happen next. Yeah, so that is why we are not going to think in a long run. But still, what I mark when I work with the company is that this is just the perception. Yeah, because when you take the example of the company that actually existed in the crisis situation, and the half of the leaders overachieved their objectives or targets, and half of them underperformed. Yeah, so the only reason why they underperformed was it was a crisis. But for the another part of the organization, it wasn't a crisis that caused that they overachieved their targets. So it's again about the perception. And about yeah, so what is the philosophy behind what we do, how we do, and so on. So how we approach the decision making and management of the processes and people in the organization. Okay, good. Thank you very much, Sören, for this very fruitful discussion. I hope that this is it was a great inspiration and infusion of energy into the minds of our leaders and executives to think through. I'm not sure that it would be a quick decision to set up a chief philosophy officer in the organizations, but still, yeah, if we put this idea in their minds, sooner or later, yeah, they will come up with a certain solution, right?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you so much for having me, Valery. It's been a pleasure, and also your last point on long-term thinking. That would be, I think, that would be a topic for another discussion. And yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely agree. Thank you, and thank everybody that you were with us.